how did you go from everything in the world to I'm just going to be the 2D music guy?
Well, hey, Marcus, I'm so glad we can make some time here today. I want to make this as valuable as possible for you. I know that you have some questions that you'd love to ask. So I just want to kick off the conversation by perhaps asking what has been some of your favorite content of mine so far? And how has that impacted you in your career?
So not a long story, so hopefully I won't drag it out. Unfortunately, for better or worse, I just found out about you, so my apologies for that. But I've been diving in on your content. So where the way I found you was from the Soundtrack Academy interview that you did, and I don't know when that was done, but I believe I listened to it last week.
Okay.
Um, and what really resonated with me was how you approached. And I played through this part like in that interview like 3 or 4 times. How you approach pricing and not doing, asking for budget and having like, and we'll get a little bit into that, but that approach just like I just never thought about that because I'm always, and I'm more so in a different industry, so I'm trying to figure out how can I apply that mentality to some of the work that I'm doing and music that I want to do for my career. But it was just a whole different thing that I never thought about. It's like I always ask, what's the budget? Or, when you watch stuff on film, it's like, the music budget is usually like 1 to 2% of the film budget. It's like, okay, well, what's the budget for this independent project, or what's the budget for this other thing that they say they don't have a budget. Well, everyone has a budget. So that part really resonated with me. But I found out about you from that interview with Johnny and Soundtrack Academy, and then I started diving in on your YouTube page. Just subscribed like yesterday. Watched like a couple of the videos. Dived in on the 10. What was it? The 10 tips. What is it? 10 video game composers. I can't remember the name of the article, but
Yeah.
read that. So fairly new. First time listener, first time caller type of deal. But definitely been enjoying like consuming the content that you already have out there, and just trying to see how I can take that mentality you have from the video game side and apply it to some other areas that I'm working with, or even look more into video game myself. So
Yeah.
definitely appreciate that.
Well, that's awesome to hear. How can I help you today?
On what I believe I'm trying to do music wise, I've always had a focus on I want to create music for recording artists like pop, hip hop, R&B, and working with a lot of independent artists. And I've been getting a lot. I post a lot on social media of me just playing music. I do some type of. Sometimes I've started doing orchestral remixes of like pop songs and posting those online. And then sample contests. I enter a lot of remix contests and things. So recently, I've been getting asked a lot, like, how much do you charge, to make this type of beat, or how much do you charge to sample this track for me and send it to me, and just trying to figure out how I can take that. Don't ask for the budget mentality that you have and apply it more to the pop, hip hop, R&B space, music space, where a lot of times, especially if they're independent, they don't have a budget. But you ask them a budget, and they're like, "Well, what do you charge?" And then, like you said, you have that back and forth. But I'm still trying to figure out, like, is there a way to apply that mentality that you have to that space, when a lot of times these people may not have a budget, or they don't know, what their budget is.
I think you said it a few minutes ago that everyone has a budget. They just may not have it at the tip of their tongue. They may not know what their budget is. But here's the coolest thing about pricing, and I think you can apply this to any business. I'm someone who I'm constantly hiring people, and I'm constantly outsourcing for just about everything. And that's something I've been getting into more over this, even just the last few months. The whole COVID, being at home all the time, has really forced me in a way. If I want to grow my business, I have to have people doing the things that I don't love doing, and the things that are kind of the secondary tasks. Because at the end of the day, there's only one thing that Steven does that no one else can do, and that's write the melodies, or write the core idea. It could be beats, whatever. But at some degree, there's only one thing that I do best, and that's it. And then besides that, I'm a manager and I'm an outsourcer. And there's something that happens when you build a team and when you start working with other people, that your business scales exponentially. It's never just an additive process of, oh, hey, now I have a social media marketing guy. Now I have a video editor. Now I have an orchestration guy, a sheet music guy, whatever. It's not like it just adds building blocks to the business. No. It multiplies. And every person you add multiplies the revenue that comes in. It multiplies what you're able to save and give. And these are all the things that I talk about on the show. But to be more specific, you're talking about pricing. And I think people make pricing too complicated. And really, at the end of the day, pricing is simply an exchange of money for value. So if you provide value that is greater than the money that they have, you win. You are literally in the negotiating high ground. Now, there's a few tactics that we can apply to help with this. The number one thing I always recommend is get on the phone. Get on the phone as soon as possible. Have a face-to-face conversation is the best, but that's just not practical, especially during these times. But hopping on the phone, you can almost always, if you have the mindset to do it, you can almost end the conversation with a decision. I am not someone who wastes my time thinking about things. I make a phone call to make a decision. I'll give you an example. Yesterday, I made a call. I wanted to hire someone for something, and I literally just got on the call. We talked for about 10 minutes, and by the end of the conversation, I paid him. It was a large amount of money, and it was something that was literally 4 times the amount of money I was ready to spend. But the end of the conversation ended like this. I said, thank you so much for this opportunity. I want the best, and you're the best. I want quality, and I understand that you can recommend other people who will charge me less, but they're not you. They're not going to do the job that you're going to bring to the table. So I hired him, and he's going to do a phenomenal job, and he's likely going to do more than I expect of him. We're going to form a great business relationship, and he's likely going to stay on the team for a long time. Just this morning, actually right before this, I had another call. My brand is mostly about video game music, but I have a pretty rich past in film and in podcasts. And so sometimes those jobs come along, and if I have the time and energy and capacity to do it, I do it. So this week, actually right after this call, I'm doing a film score where that exact question came up. Hey, what's your budget? And instead of me saying, oh, can you do this? Can you do this? Can you do this? I literally I had a number in my head, and it was larger than I thought that they would take. But I just had this experience of yesterday hiring someone for literally 4 times the amount that I thought. But I knew that I'm the person that they want for the job. I'm the right person for the job. And I feel confident in that. And I know what my time is worth ultimately. And so I gave a number, and I rationalized it by breaking it down like a business person would, an itemized list. And I literally said, here's the composition fee, here's the sheet music fee, and here's the musician fee, the production. Because I wanted to hire a soloist for this particular project. I wanted to hire a cellist. And I said, this is going to sell it. This is what you want. Like, I've already written a little sample thing for you. You like it right now. It's good. But when we hire this person, it's going to become great. So what I did there is I played on the emotions. And there was nothing fake about it. I was very authentic. I was very real. And I said, you know what? This might be over your budget. And if it is, that's okay. I can say no. But it was just an instant, cool, yeah, great. So that just happened this morning. So this is the way that business, I think meaningful business happens, because it's relational first. It's talking to another human. It's having a real conversation. So let's put a pause on that. Let's go to the other side, which is online business. Now, online business functions best when we're talking about products, because there doesn't need to be the middleman. You have your sales page, you have maybe YouTube content or podcast content. Something is driving someone to that. They like it, they need it, it's the right price, they buy it, they move on. That's how products can scale. But what I've found is it's really hard to sell services online. It's not impossible, but it's almost like it's like a business card in a sense. It's like a pamphlet. It's like, here's the information, but you still need the sale. You need the human interaction to have a sale of a service, because services are typically way more expensive, and there's typically something custom about it. So, I know I'm kind of giving a shotgun here, but you can see how services, ultimately, if you can get on the phone, you will sell so much faster and typically at the price that you actually want to. So that kind of leads into pricing itself. What the heck do you charge? Well, there's no wrong answer. There's no right answer. You need to feel confident in what that is. And I actually just read a book, and I usually read books pretty quickly. But this book took me a full month because I did all the exercises, and it's called Success is Not an Accident. It's by Tommy Newberry. Highly, highly recommend that book. Go get the ebook if you want. what it does is it goes through multiple exercises where you're supposed to evaluate your worth monetarily and what is your financial worth in the marketplace. Very business book. Has nothing to do with music. But through this, I actually came to the conclusion that my time currently is worth $500 an hour. But to reach the $1 million a year mark, which is where I'm headed, I have to sell $700 per hour, which is crazy. And it sounds crazy, right? If you've never done it before, it sounds crazy. But now, if I were to talk to myself 5 years ago and say the current numbers that I do, I would think that's crazy. But it's progressive. You build, you build, you build. This is not a short-term career. I want to do this for the rest of my life. So as long as I'm always increasing, right? So a personal goal of mine is to always to earn more income every month of my life,
Mm.
right? And that way, I'm always saving more. I'm always investing more. I'm always giving more, which are the three big things I want to do with my life. Always going to be giving, always saving, always investing. And so in order to do that, I have to earn more every month. And so if I don't currently have a service that I'm selling, then I'm going to be building products to continue the passive income machine because it's not one or the other. If you really want to that's the whole book behind me, right? Family First Composer is literally all about what passive income machines can we build to supplement our lifestyle so that when the projects come that our dream projects, the service ones that take a lot of time and energy and talent and teams, which usually pay way more than the products, how can we set up a lifestyle that pays the bills, gives us the savings? That way, when these moments come, we can take them on.
I definitely appreciate some of that insight. You said Steven does one thing, and that's like melody and music. And knowing just from the videos and stuff I've seen and some of your content, it's really narrowly focused on 2D games. So you won't even
Mm.
do 3D, or maybe to an extent, but you won't do it as much. So for someone like me, where I've done a lot of things, I've done like the sample flips, the remixes. I enter like a contest a day, and that's a whole nother mentality I have for why I enter contests. But like remix contests, sample flip contests. I've done some, let's say, game music, but mainly for like apps. Just a quick like theme for an app. Worked with independent artists, even done music for museum exhibits, which is incredible, for like 5 or 6 years, and that like died this year, obviously. Um, and done a little bit of voiceover work, and recently started getting into like making, just doing piano. I play piano, so I'm a musician. So just recently started getting requests to just put piano on like people on like producers tracks. So how do you? So that's like 8 or 9 things. How did you say, I'm going to be the one that does this one thing? This is the most, because I enjoy doing it all. Like there's none that sets the bar higher than the others. Um, and trying to figure out like, okay, if this is the one thing that I'll focus on for these 3 to 6 months, but then like I still get like these other ideas. Like part of my contest mentality is like, hey, I need a new interface. Oh, so there's this remix contest where the prize is an interface, because I'm not going to have the money to buy it, so I'm going to enter this contest, but then that'll take away from doing some of the other work. So how do you focus, like, of those like 8 or 9 things, like making music for artists or remix contests or sampling, video games, independent projects, piano? How did you go from everything in the world to, I'm just going to be the 2D music guy? How do you narrow that focus?
Do you track your income every month in a budget?
Yes, and for the music side of things, it is not at the way you said it, where you like to increase every month. That's a great mentality. And obviously during this time, a lot of things have slowed down. 'Cause I'm also a musician at my church, and church has been shut down since
Yeah.
mid-March. So that's been gone for 5, 6 months now. So it's not a lot to track right now.
Okay.
But yes, it has been tracked, um, and I have some of those relationships, but it's just, um, that side of things aren't, as far as music and business, aren't really doing much right now. So trying to find other avenues. And then like, do I need to do sample packs?
Right.
Or I've tried like the beat licensing thing. I don't think that's really my avenue. Um, but just trying to figure out some different avenues and try to build up to that level.
Okay. I have a video I want to recommend to you.
Okay.
This is one I filmed earlier this year. It's called 10 Ways to Earn $1,000 per Month as a Music Composer. And I go through 10 different ways and I talk about how many sales of each of those 10 things you have to reach. About half of them are services, about half of them are products. And I go through and give a specific number of, 52 of sales of this thing equal $1,000. And that if you put them all
Okay.
together, you have a six-figure business if you only do some of them, right? So the idea is diversification is very important. So let's establish a couple of pillars here, and then we'll go into the nuance. So some of the pillars of business is you should always diversify. It doesn't matter who you talk to in the music space. Everyone that is successful and has a six-figure or seven-figure income is a result of them doing multiple things. And actually, a very interesting stat here is if you ever study millionaires, no one becomes a millionaire through one income source. And if they do, it's very short-lived. It's not a long-term play. I actually love interviewing millionaires who are 50 and above because they've kept their wealth versus those who get it and spend it. That's a different story. So what we can learn from people with large amounts of wealth, they typically have 3 to 6 at least income sources. I believe in having as many as possible so long as you can maintain them. And the cool thing about having wealth is once you have wealth, you can invest it to invest more wealth. It's like this multiplicity effect where your money makes money. And that's what investing is, right? So the coolest thing about entrepreneurship is you start at nothing, but as soon as you make any money at all, make $100, you can make that $100 turn into 1,000. You don't have to earn it ever again.
Mhm.
You can let that money work for you. I'm not saying just throw it in a savings account. I'm talking about spend that $100 to invest in someone that you're hiring for $50 that's going to make you 1,000. And then you go over here, you pivot, you pivot, you pivot. We're building a machine, we're building a business. So that's kind of a pillar of business, is that you should always be investing back into the business. You should always be profitable. That's why I don't believe in debt. I don't believe that you should ever go negative numbers. That makes no sense. You should always be positive numbers. You can't give negative money. You can't save negative money, right? So with that, I believe in building an infrastructure of when you make money, you save some, you invest some, and you give some. Keeps you cheerful. It keeps you a joyful giver, but then it also equips other people. It builds your relationships. And here's the trap that most musicians fall into. They earn $100 for the first time. Oh my gosh, I made money from selling tracks, whatever. The first thought is, what gear can I buy? Or something to that effect, right? They're not thinking, how can I turn this money into more money? They're thinking, how can I improve my craft? Which is valid. I give them that. That's an important step. I have a studio. It's pretty nice. It's not top dollar, but what I've invested in is budget gear that gets the job done. So one of my personal convictions is I only invest in gear if that gear will improve the current project. I actually never buy sample libraries. I do a lot of sample library reviews, and you'll notice I probably have $30,000 worth of sample libraries, which is absurd. No one needs that ever. Even as a professional, I don't use half of that. But why do I have so much? Because sample instrument companies ask me to review their products. It takes none of my time.
Yep.
And if I like it, I keep it. It's called a not for resale license. But anyway, there's a lot of composers who do that. Like other people fund my studio, not me. Like everything around me is just about reviews and stuff. And that's why YouTube is so powerful. When you have nothing, right? You can build from the ground up, literally spend no money. But the main principle here is when you earn money, if you can invest that in a job that you hate, that is part of your business, then you're going to start to scale. You're going to start to grow. And this goes back to your first question about pricing. So how do you price yourself? Well, what are your costs? What are your business expenses? How much does your family need? What are your goals? It's a different answer for every single person. The reason I charge so stinking much is because number one, I know I'm worth it because I value what my time, I value what I do. Number two, I want to work less the older I get, not more. The further I get in my career, the less I end up working. My goal right now, I work about 15 to 20 hours per week. 5 years ago, I worked 60 hours a week. And in 5 years, I want to work about 4 hours a week. Need to. I will likely work more because I love what I do. And it's,
Yeah.
I have a tendency to be a workaholic, and I have to really be strict with my time so that I can give to my family and such. But the idea is invest. Use your money to invest in what you're doing, and it's going to continue to grow. So your question is, you have all these things to do. What do you do? Well, I currently have 23 income streams right now, this month. That sounds crazy, but it's not because I did them all in one day. It's because that's the thing. That's the affiliate program I did 2 years ago for that product. That's the music packs I did for video games. That's the film score royalties I get for that show and trailer and whatever, right? It just adds up. And this is the coolest part about entrepreneurship is no one controls my schedule. No one controls my fees. No one controls anything about my business. There's really no ceiling to what I do. So if I can just constantly build products on my off time when I'm not actively working on a well-paid project, I'm constantly building things like courses and books and streaming music on Spotify and whatever. Like there's so many things. This is why I want you to go watch that video, because I actually pull open some of my budgets and I literally go through the list of all 20 or whatever income streams. And I go through, look, this one made nothing this month. This one made a ton. This one made $5. This one made 25. This one made 2,500. Totally different, right? But the accumulative effect is that every month it's more or less increasing. And there's hills and valleys of any career, but if you were to look at zoom out the macro view of my analytics of the last 5-6 years, it's like a little squiggly, but it's going higher and higher and higher, and it's always exponential. So with that, use the money you make in this early stage to fund all of the things. Because here's what some people will tell you. They'll say, no, you have to focus on one thing and only do that thing. And that's something that I teach is focus. And this is what you heard from Johnny's podcast on the Soundtrack Academy. I said on there, choose one thing and do it for 6 months. Yes, that should be your number one primary focus that you do. But you should have other people that you're hiring to do the other thing. Because think about this. Let's break it down. If I want to create a game music pack that's going to probably going to earn me $100 to $200 per month forever until it's no longer valuable. But if you make good stuff and you have a good marketing engine, etc., or you put it on places that it's going to sell, that's going to pay itself back so fast. So I don't want to spend the 15 hours making the game music pack and getting the art and doing all the metadata and the tags and just the annoying computer jargon stuff that I hate doing. I can do it. And I think at the lower level of just starting off, we think we have to do everything. But if you spend 15 hours doing that, back when I was teaching music lessons, 60 hours a week, and I only had 5 hours in the entire week to do anything music related that I loved, that would take me 3 weeks to do that one stupid project, which only earns me $100 to $200 a month. And at that moment, it didn't feel like a good trade. So imagine instead, you paid someone $200, which is not a lot of money. You pay them $200, 10 hours of their time. They'll probably do it faster than you because if it's someone that's done it before, they're going to be way faster and they're going to love doing it because they're getting paid. That's their side hustle. And basically they're now being paid to do something that you could do, but now you have 15 hours freed up to do something else.
Yeah.
So if you can create a priority list for yourself, I think it's great that you have so many skills and passions, but at some point you got to choose number one. And I would encourage you to make a list of every single income stream you want to have, put them from 1 to 100, and then tackle number one as your time, right? Let's say you have 15 hours in a week. That's number one. That's how you're spending your time. But what's number two? You should hire someone else to do number two. And then number three, when you can afford it. Number four, when you can afford it. Because you should be prioritizing these based on the return of revenue. Number one's just the thing that you want to do because you love it. So for me, that's writing music. and it doesn't even pay the best, but it's the thing that I know I'm born for. Like I love it so much, and that's what I would do any day, every day. So that's what I focus on, and then social media, video editing, courses, books, royalties, everything else, the 20 other things I hire out for when I can. I can't always hire for all of those things because at least not at the beginning, because
Yeah.
we're talking thousands of bucks when you start adding them up. And that's not feasible at the beginning. But people often ask me, what are my business expenses? Honestly, I run a very lean business that only costs me probably $500 a month to run a business that makes a lot. But here's the cool part. Those are the necessities. That's like software and basics of studio space, whatever. It costs almost nothing to run my business. But every month I'm always looking, who can I add to the team that's going to cost $1,000, $2,000, whatever? Who can I add to the team that will make 10x return on that money? If I'm paying someone $2,000 to do something, then I'm expecting a 20,000 return. Maybe not immediately, but within 6 months or so, right? It has to pay itself out. And that's business. You use money to make more money.
On one of your videos, or it might have been an interview, I don't know where I found it, you had a sort of a rule of rejection, the 5 rejection rule. And the premise is, for those that don't know, you scale your rates after each gig, and then for the next gig you scale it up a certain percentage. If you get 5 rejections, then you consider lowering that rate. However, for someone who doesn't have the amount of business to even be rejected 5 times, how do you scale your rates, and how do you even get that first job? I know you said the face-to-face interview or phone interview, or phone discussion to sort of secure the deal, but how do you get to that first connection, especially if there's companies you want to work with, and they're not coming to you, not to you, they're coming to you, but they're not coming to me. How do I get that connection? Like, I can do LinkedIn, I can do cold calls, emails, but that doesn't work. You can, steal footage of the game or the movie or the show or whatever, and take the music out and do your own music. And some of the remixes and things I've done, that's helped me connect with some artists and things. But how do you just get that first definite, that could open the door for future, for you to be able to say, oh, I can reject, 5 of these other offers because I have this one that I've been trying to get.
A curious part about business is people hire you not based on what you've done, but what you're currently doing. So it has nothing to do with your credits, has nothing to do with who you've worked with, what you've done in the past, because it's irrelevant. People want to know, what are you doing right now? Because if you're busy doing something else, then it allows you to command a higher rate and to have more negotiating power. So I know one of the toughest places to be in any business is day one. Like, what do you do? How do you get that first job? I'll be honest that you have to position yourself for work. And it's always harder to get the first couple gigs versus once you've established relationships, because the easiest person to sell to is someone you've already sold to. Repeat clients are easy to get because you already have that relational equity, and it's just the majority of my gigs are from past clients because we had an amazing experience together. So of course they're going to ask me again the next time a project comes around. And I actually made a video about this last year or 2 years ago, that my clientele is about 5 people. And I'm learning I guess the further along I go, it's like shrinking. It's not increasing, it's shrinking. It's like the same 2 people, the same 1 person, or the same 3 people. It's like it's gone from 20 clients to 10 to 5. And it's not because I'm doing a bad job. It's because my prices are increasing, their quality is increasing, their expectations are increasing. And there just seems to be this trend that the higher up I go, the higher I can charge, the easier it is to ask for it, and the quicker sales happen, and the quicker the expectations are. Like this film score I'm doing, I have to write 8 minutes today. What? Because it's high paid, it's a quick turnaround. I just did a huge video game thing where I'm recording with an orchestra next week or 2 weeks. I just had to do 22 minutes of music in a couple of weeks, and fully orchestrated everything, right? And I had to have team members for that. But it's like that's just what happens. The higher up you go, the more intense the projects become. So of course you can charge more. But when you're kind of at the very beginning stages, you're not in that same position, and you don't need to act like you are. It's okay to be totally honest and frank with people. Hey, this is actually my first time ever writing for a video game, but I'm so excited about it. I love this genre. Here are some of my demo tracks that I've made. You kind of just grow organically from there. There's no need to, people talk about perception a lot. It's important to have a good public perception, but think about it. If you could choose between two things, like making a killer website that makes you seem like a pro when you're actually not, or you're just the guy on social media who is always there, always present, always learning, always growing, always answering questions, building community, just like being a cool person, that's the person that gets hired. I've also said this a bunch on the show. People I hire are in this phone, nowhere else. I've never hired a human that's not in my phone.
Yeah.
When people hire, they hire fast. They usually hire within one phone call. They usually hire the same day. There's no discussions. It's just literally, here's the job, here's the budget, you interested? And that's just how it goes. And so a film director or a game developer or anyone that needs music, they're in the same position, but they want to think of you. They want to call Marcus on the phone but so really the question here is not how do I get the first gig, which is the question everyone asks. The question is how do I get into the phone of the person I want to work with? Totally different. There are two places where sales happen: in emails and in phones. Social media is great and it has its place. It's for building connections with people in an online world. But you're not going to land sales there. So I would start asking yourself, how can I get into the phone of someone I want to work with or the types of projects I want to work on? Because that's where they happen. They're quick and if I wanted to hire I just told you a story about yesterday. I hired somebody, it was one phone call, boom, done. Now he's working for the next 30 days. So that's really, if there's ever a shortcut, it's you got to be in that place. And there's a million ways to get there, but because it's all about relationships.
How can I help you? If can I help you, and if so, how?
Mm, great
And you
question.
can think about it. You can say, "I'll email out." We can talk offline. Is there any way? Because you have no idea who I am or
Sure.
what I do, what I can do.
No,
Um,
that's an amazing question that I'm gonna encourage you to keep asking that question to everyone you meet for the rest of your life, because that is how all jobs happen.
mhm,
But I want you to change it slightly. Instead of asking, how can I help you? I've made this mistake, by the way. I've fallen into this countless times
mhm,
because I understand the value of helping people, and that's how the world works. But instead of asking that, it's your job to research and to study up on the people that you
mhm.
want to work with and help. And that's your job to find the missing link. Does that make sense? So, for example, I told this story a few weeks ago, actually, if you want to watch my interview with Gary Scheiman, and he was there to confirm it that I reached out to him. This was back in my college days. Where I reached out to him, I think it was 2014, and I basically said, "Hey, I noticed that." I basically said, "Would you like help with blank?" Which, in his case, I knew that he was a huge uh, film and video game composer. He writes with orchestras, massive career, super A-lister, top of the game. And I figured, you know what? He probably doesn't spend a lot of time in a DAW or in technology. He doesn't really need to. When I started a conversation with him, it was not, how can I help you? It was, hey, would it be valuable for you if I did this for you for free? And he literally invited me into his studio. And for 2 or 3 days, he gave me full access to his machine. And I got to work with him. And I got to do some really cool scripting and stuff with Contact, which is just a piece of software that I knew really well. And I was able to work with his orchestral sounds and just do really cool stuff. And that led to so many things in my life because he invited me backstage to a concert he was doing the next day. And I got to meet 10 other amazing A-list composers. And that actually got me a job for an entire year as an assistant to another composer. And this snowball effect happened. And I didn't get any payment. I didn't need to for that first initial job. It's something I wanted to do. I wanted to help this guy out. And I wanted to serve what he was doing and build that relationship. And that's what I've found is the quickest way to build any relationship is to add value, but you can't just say, how can I help you? What you need to do is provide the smallest amount of time for people for you to basically do it for them. So it might be sending a free music track. I talk about this a lot. Sending a free music track to a music team or a film team or a game team. Hey, I'd love to work on your game. Here's a free track if you want to use it commercially free of charge. Because that just like, it infiltrates the guard. It gets them into a sweet spot of, oh my gosh, he just did all this for us. This is amazing. It builds relational equity. And you can do this in any field. You can do this in any business. Adam Gubman is someone that I always wanted to work with and have a relationship with. If you notice that name, he's actually the forward to my book. And I never, ever thought he would be willing to do a forward to my book, because that just adds insane amount of authority and credibility when you get A-listers to support a younger person, right? In my career. And here's how this worked out. I had an initial conversation with him about doing the forward. And he's like, hey man, I'd really love to do this. This sounds right up my alley. I don't have the time. Like this is, I can't write a few pages. Like I'm very busy. And here's a guy who works with Disney and has like 17 projects at a time. There's no way he'd ever have time for that. So instead I'm like, dang it. Okay, how can I serve him? I did my research and I figured it out. What if I asked him for a 5-minute phone call and I literally recorded the call and I dictated it, took all the text and then edited it into what is currently the forward, sent it to him, and literally one email, 5 minutes of his time, we had the forward and he approved it. We moved on. It was done. And I had exactly what I needed. And you can kind of see how I did all the labor and the work to provide that opportunity. Instead of just saying, hey, will you do this? It was, this will only take 5 minutes of your time. Boom, 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 boom. And in my situation, as much as I am happy to talk with as many humans as possible, I don't have the time. But notice what I'm doing here, even in this show, as much as I enjoy talking with you and adding value where I can, I'm also recording it because I know this is going to serve my YouTube audience. And obviously it checks the box of content for that particular week and a podcast episode, whatever.
Yeah.
So I think any time that you can combine efforts into one activity, you're going to hit a lot more of your check marks. Because I even have the live composing show, which is every Thursday, and that's about 2 or 3 hours. And then my social media guy takes that, clips that, puts it on social media. I can take that and send it to my current clients because I'm working on real projects. I can use that as a teaching mechanism for anyone that's there. And so if you were to add them all up, there's about 5 or 6 goals that I'm meeting every single week just by having that one show. And yeah, it's a big time commitment, but I also love it. And for about 2 or 3 hours, I'm tackling so many different things. Anytime you can do that, anytime you can kind of double dip, it's going to help a lot with your efficiency.
But I definitely appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely, Marcus. It was a pleasure just getting in touch with you for a little bit, and I look forward to connecting further.
Yeah. Appreciate it, man.
Well, thanks, man.
All right.
You have a good one. Enjoy the rest of your day.
You too.